Ladies and gentlemen, Chinese businesses and investors, and just in general in the Western part of the world, are pulling their money and going elsewhere. And this is happening in big numbers. Not only just the US and Canada, but also Australia and all of Europe where they're located. They're leaving and taking every dime with them.
Just a few years ago, Chinese money was rippling across the rich world. Chinese investors were making blockbuster deals and snapping up trophy assets, from luxury homes and five-star hotels in New York to a Swiss chemical company and a German robotics giant. That era is over. Chinese investment is retreating from the West as hostility to Chinese capital has grown. Increasingly, Chinese companies are instead spending money on factories in Southeast Asia and mining and energy projects in Asia, the Middle East, and South America, as Beijing seeks to cement alliances in those places and secure access to critical resources. The biggest recipient of Chinese investment so far this year is nickel-rich Indonesia, according to a preliminary estimate of Chinese investments compiled by the American Enterprise Institute, a conservative think tank, and viewed by the Wall Street Journal. Nickel is a key component in many of the batteries used to power electric vehicles. The shift in investment flows shows how China is responding to souring relations with the US-led West and is strengthening trade and investment links with other parts of the world in ways that could create new fault lines in the global economy. The retreat of Chinese money in the West could lead to less job creation in some countries, while also reducing the pool of capital into which entrepreneurs in places such as Silicon Valley can tap. China's weak economy is already depriving the world of one of its traditional growth engines. More broadly, the shift is indicative of a world in which globalization is ebbing and geopolitical tensions are more likely to fester. Direct overseas investment from China to the rest of the world fell by 18% from a year earlier by one new measure released recently. The latest level marks a decline of 25% from a peak in 2016 as overseas mergers and acquisitions have plummeted and Beijing has tightened rules to curb capital flight. Within China, a weakening currency, the struggling private sector, and Beijing's growing focus on building up its domestic economy to enhance China's self-sufficiency will also damp its investment outflows, the analysts added. By and large, the room for China to channel investment to foreign advanced economies is shrinking, said Louis Kitts, chief Asia-Pacific economist at S&P Global Ratings. It is unlikely that China's overseas investment flows will increase significantly in the next 3 to 5 years, he said. Instead, China will likely realign investments to cement its dominance in such sectors as renewable energy and electric vehicles. That likely means doubling down on investment in emerging markets from Southeast Asia to the Middle East and Africa, as Chinese factory owners look for places to expand operations and find new customers, and Beijing focuses on markets rich in resources. The Chinese automaker BYD said this month that it plans to invest more than $600 million in several car plants in Brazil. While Xi Jinping is alive, we are not going back to 2016, said Derek Scissors, a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, referring to the high watermark of Chinese investment overseas. He said that while the U.S. economy isn't likely to miss Chinese capital too much, its retreat could be more painful for smaller Western economies, such as Australia, Canada, or Hungary. Less Chinese money for Western economies does have some upsides. It could reduce the kind of speculative behavior that drove up real estate prices, for example, as it did in places including Canada, the US, and Australia before the pandemic. When they were buying it, they moved the market, said Jim Costello, chief economist at MSCI Real Assets, a real estate research firm. They made everyone step up their game and bid more. Chinese investors ignited a speculative frenzy in markets such as New York City in the middle of the last decade. The insurer Anbang bought the Waldorf Astoria for $1.95 billion in 2015, at the time the most expensive purchase of a U.S. hotel on record. Anbang was taken over by the government in 2018, shortly before its founder was sentenced to 18 years in prison for financial crimes related to fraud and abuse of power. A plan to convert the Waldorf Astoria to luxury apartments hasn't been completed. Outward direct investment is weaker lately across the world, not just from China. Across all countries, including the US, outbound investment dropped 14% in 2022 from a year earlier, as inflation, recession fears, and financial market turbulence put investments on hold, data from the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development show. But China's decline has been steeper and stretches over a longer period, particularly in developed economies, a sign of economic detachment from the West. UN data show overseas investment by China fell to around $147 billion in 2022, a decline of 18% compared with a year earlier. It peaked at $196 billion in 2016.
I'm not surprised about this at all. Because you know what? Foreigners are only over here for the money. They're here to make money, and that's it. They don't have any loyalty to America, don't care about America. Because if things start getting tough for them, they're going to pack up and board a plane and get out of here. They're not going to help you fight any war, America. They're only here for money only. So once they pack up and continue to leave out of here in droves and go in other parts of the world, hey, America, this is just more misfortune. And we haven't even gotten to the BRICS currency yet. And China is part of that, as we know. So the fact that their citizens are fleeing and raking out those accounts and saying goodbye to you, I'm not surprised. I think ultimately many of them over these next few years are going to just get out of here. They won't see any more purpose in being here anymore. Y'all, please tell me what you think about this video. I mean, it might be surprising to some people, but it's definitely not surprising to me at all. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.